Welcome back to Unlock, Empower, Transform. I'm Che Blackmon, and today we're tackling a topic that, let's be honest, we'd all rather forget, but absolutely cannot afford to: crisis leadership. Specifically, what the pandemic taught us about resilience and what it should have taught us, but didn't. Episode 13: Crisis Leadership Lessons: What the Pandemic Taught Us About Resilience. Because if we learned anything from 2020, it's that unprecedented times isn't just a phrase we overused in emails, it's our new reality. You know what still amazes me? How many organizations treated the pandemic like a temporary inconvenience instead of a masterclass in organizational resilience. 5 years later, some companies emerged stronger, more agile, more connected. Others? Still trying to force everyone back to 2019 like nothing happened. The difference? Crisis leadership that actually leads versus crisis management that just manages. Let me share something from my own experience. March 2020, I'm working in manufacturing. Overnight, the workforce was laid off. Protocols for reporting and communication plans had to be created immediately. Employees as well as senior leaders were panicking. A complete safe workplace playbook was created in preparation to return to normal. Sound familiar? Here's what we did, straight from Chapter 9 of High Value Leadership. We flipped the entire crisis response model. Instead of hoarding information, we opened the floodgates. Daily all hands calls. Real numbers, real challenges, real conversations about what wasn't working. The result? Frontline workers started solving problems leadership didn't even know existed. We redesigned the entire workflow for social distancing in 48 hours. The HR team created options for pay solutions for layoffs. But here's what really gets me, and I talk about this extensively in the High Value Leadership Intensive. Most organizations learned the wrong lessons. They learned how to do Zoom calls and work remotely. Great, gold star. But did they learn how to build truly resilient cultures? Did they learn that crisis leadership isn't about having all the answers, but creating systems where answers can emerge from anywhere? Not so much. So let's talk about real organizational resilience, not the buzzword version, the kind that actually works when everything's falling apart. First principle: psychological safety becomes non-negotiable. During a crisis, people need to share bad news fast. If your culture punishes the messenger, you're flying blind. The organizations that thrived during the pandemic, they had cultures where someone could say, "This isn't working," without fearing for their job. Second principle: distributed decision making. When everything's changing daily, waiting for executive approval is organizational suicide. You need what I call empowered edges. People at every level authorized to make decisions within clear frameworks. Third principle: transparent communication. And I mean transparent, not corporate speak transparent, not we're monitoring the situation transparent, real transparent. Here's what we know, here's what we don't know, here's what we're trying, and here's how you can help. Now, Chapter 9 of my book outlines specific strategies for building this kind of resilience. But let me give you my favorite framework, the one that saved multiple organizations during the pandemic. I call it the 3 R's of crisis leadership: respond, not react. Respond. There's a difference. Reacting is panicking and making decisions from fear. Responding is taking a breath, assessing and moving with intention. Recalibrate. Crisis changes the game. Stop playing by old rules. What worked yesterday might be irrelevant today. Be willing to throw out your 5-year plan and create a 5-day plan. Reinforce. This is the one everyone forgets. In crisis, culture doesn't just happen. You have to actively reinforce your values, your connections, your purpose every single day. Want to know the organizations that didn't just survive the pandemic but actually grew stronger? They were the ones already practicing crisis leadership principles. They had psychological safety before they needed it. They had distributed decision-making before it became essential. They had transparent communication before it was the only option. So here's your actionable exercise for this week: the Crisis Preparation Audit. Step 1. List the 3 biggest vulnerabilities in your organization right now, not the obvious ones, the ones that keep you up at night. Step 2, for each vulnerability, identify who in your organization, regardless of title, has the most insight into that area. Step 3, have a real conversation with each of those people. Not a meeting, a conversation. Ask them, if this vulnerability became a crisis tomorrow, what would we need to do differently? Step 4, actually listen to their answers. Then, and this is crucial, act on at least one suggestion from each conversation. This isn't just preparation, it's trust building. It's creating those communication channels before you desperately need them. You know what's frustrating? We had this massive global classroom for crisis leadership, and so many organizations are pretending they didn't attend class. They're going back to rigid hierarchies, information hoarding, and command and control leadership. But crisis isn't going away. Whether it's another pandemic, economic disruption, technological upheaval, or challenges we can't even imagine yet, resilient organizations will thrive while rigid ones crumble. The Shield Resilience Strategy Guide I created, there's an entire section on building crisis communication protocols that actually work. Not the corporate template nonsense, real, human, effective communication strategies that create connection during chaos. Download it, the link's in the show notes, and pay special attention to the Building Resilient Communication Channels framework. Here's what I want you to remember. Crisis doesn't build character, it reveals it. The pandemic didn't create leadership problems in organizations, it exposed them. It showed us which cultures were actually high value and which were just high maintenance. The beautiful thing, you don't have to wait for the next crisis to build resilience. You can start today. You can create psychological safety in your next meeting. You can practice transparent communication in your next email. You can empower decision-making in your next project. And for those of you ready to dive deep into crisis leadership that transforms organizations, the High Value Leadership Intensive includes an entire module on building anti-fragile cultures, organizations that don't just survive disruption, but get stronger because of it. We'll work through real scenarios, build actual frameworks, and create leadership practices that work when everything else doesn't. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with this truth. The next crisis is coming. That's not pessimism, that's reality. The question is, will your organization be ready? Will your leadership create clarity or chaos? Will your culture connect people or divide them? You get to choose right now, today. If this episode hit home, download the Shield Resilience Strategy Guide and tell me in the comments, what's one crisis leadership lesson you learned the hard way? Let's learn from each other, because that's how we all get stronger. And join me Tuesday when we dive into the feedback revolution, creating cultures of continuous improvement. Because if crisis taught us anything, it's that organizations that can't learn and adapt quickly don't survive. Until then, remember, resilience isn't about bouncing back, it's about bouncing forward. This is Che Blackmon reminding you to unlock potential, empower growth, and transform your workplace, especially when it matters most. See you Tuesday.